Alright, hello and welcome to About Yahweh's Business. Today we are going to go over train up. Train up. I think a lot of us, first thing that comes to us is train up a child, right? But what we forget that we are all the children of Yahweh. We are His children. So in most cases, no matter how old we are, how long we've been doing this, except for a lot of people that was raised in this, that we are still children. And I think that becomes a massive problem into the way that we deal with everything, the way that we even converse with each other, the way that we do what we do, because we have all of our little glitches. We have all of our little religious ways of, if you don't go to this church, you're not saved. If you don't do this, you're not saved. And all those little things that, whether we know it or not, subliminally, sometimes come out, right? Sometimes we have seen so many preachers, we have seen so many things going on that just comes out of us because that is the way we was trained. And it really doesn't matter if you went to church your whole life or you sat and watched Billy Graham on Sunday, every Sunday. You obtain that way because of what you was taught. Again, some things we take that are not that good, but some things we take that are good things. But a lot of times we are just regurgitating, if you will, what we was told. And even in songs and things that we sing, this world is not my home. A lot of us are looking for another home, a better life. But at the same time, subliminally, what we think, what we feel, that way we actually live, I'm going home. This is my home. And so on and so forth. As so much so that even when we see elders and people getting older, they are still clinging to this world. They still want this life. They still want their children. They still want their grandkids, which is fine. But the thing that we have to understand, that we should be trained up so that we are ready. Oh, death, where's thy sting? It really doesn't matter where you go, what assembly, what church that you find yourself in, that you will see somebody praying and hoping and so much into this world, into this life, when we know it's better in the next life. We know that it's better hereafter, right? I was talking to a guy yesterday, and homeless. And I don't like to even talk about things or do things because I want my treasures into heaven. But he got it. He understands. He don't have no ties to this world. He is not tied down. He doesn't have a house, a car, a payment of this, and all these things that bring him to be tied down to the world. Now, in some instances, that is a bad thing because we get so tied to what we're doing and where we are that it's hard for us to let go. And within that is not the bad thing of having things. It's not a bad thing of having a house. I'm not saying any of that. But the bad thing is we get so tied to our house, to our car, to the worldly things that sometimes we lose that perspective of someone who doesn't have anything. And like he said, he's looking forward, and it was amazing. He's looking forward to the afterlife, the next world, because in the next world, he ain't got pain. He ain't got to worry, and it started raining. He ain't got to worry about being poured down rain on. He ain't got to worry about going and hiding under a bridge. He ain't got to worry about these things. So a lot of things, again, that we're trained on, we're just not trained the right way. Yes, we're just so trained on, and I know myself, we're trained on getting things, having family, and putting it all together, and that is your success. But when we really go through the scriptures, our success is loving one another. Our success is knowing where we're going. And then once we do that, then going to and helping those others that are less fortunate. But a lot of times we get so busy in our life that we don't do the things that we should do. We don't do the commandments. A lot of these things we see in the rich man and the poor man. The rich man didn't have a care in the world because he was rich. He just passed the beggar. He didn't care about the beggar. And how many times do we do that? How many times do we pass someone and we don't even hardly think twice? We might have a gut feeling. We might feel bad. We might say, oh, help them. But there maybe is our greatest witness ever. That could be our greatest witness, as talking to someone. And not only does it help them, it helps us. I mean, it's amazing to hear someone say he's looking for the afterworld, because he knows that's where it's at. He knows in this life he's probably not going to do anything else, but he is actually praising the Creator of eternal life. The pains and the things that we go through that a lot of times we don't understand, we don't get, but if we was trained up correctly, then we would understand. Some things we just don't understand. We can't understand until we get to the other side. You know, it's just like crossing a railroad track. It's like, I don't know how long this train is. I can't see the end of it. It just keeps going, and it seems like it's forever. You know, it's just like, how long is this train? I seem like I've been sitting here, and it isn't until you see, used to be the caboose, it isn't until you see the ending of it, it's over. And a lot of things in our life, I think we just have to deal with and pray about, because we don't really know the ending until it's over. And that ending should be a blessing to the Creator. It should be our time of proving what we're going through, because there is no test like those tests. There is no trials like those things. And whether it happens, and, you know, trying to figure out all the schematics of it, what's the point? The whole point really is just putting your faith in Yahweh. And I believe that's what, from a child, that we are missing. Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. If we train our children, and again, we have to look at ourselves sometimes as that child. If we're just coming into this, you know, a lot of people, they say, well, what about head coverings? What about this? What about CC? What, you know, there's an ever flow of these questions because they're coming up, and there's nothing wrong with the questions. It's just we haven't been trained to do these things. So then we start getting opinions. And this is not opinions, right? We can't take our opinion and say against the scripture, because then we're adding to and taking away. And that's what we see a lot. People coming in and they go to this congregation, and that congregation has seats that are this big, and they wear them underneath their clothes, and they do this and they do that. So that's the normal there. But then you go somewhere else and they have the seats on the four corners. They wear talliette, they wear the tunic, and they're from here to the ground, right? And they just stretch all the way to the ground. But the training is what we're missing, I believe. We as believers are missing the training. We miss greatly the combination, the coming together. There's very few, the Yahad is one, very few that I know of, even assemblies, even they say believers, but you go there with a different opinion and you must leave. You can go now. I mean, that's what really we're learning. You ever see three children have the same exact ball, the same exact toy, the same exact way of life? Very rarely. Even in twins, you don't see those children acting the same, do you? Same household, same parents, same this, same that, but yet they're so much different. So why would we as believers all have, and this is a growing part, because, you know, a lot of times we say, well, how come we don't do everything the same across the board? Because a lot of people are not anointed and appointed. A lot of people are on YouTube, on Facebook, on this, and their whole fame, glory is for that. And you see them, right? We see people all the time that my YouTube channel, my this, my that, and then 3 months, a year or two later, you don't hear from them ever again because they didn't make the famous. They're not on TV. And, to most people out there, if you're doing it for that, you're probably never gonna, if you're speaking truth, you're probably never gonna have right next to Joe Osteen hour. You're probably not going to be invited to his church. You're probably not going to go speak at Greg Laurie's church. Because why would you? To me, to go to that place, and I've been to Greg Laurie's church, but to go there, you're an outcast. A true believer is set apart in many congregations, and even in some assemblies that we've been to. We're looked at almost like when we go into the Christian churches. It's just, whoa, what's up with the hair and what's up with that? And some, I make a joke. I think a lot of people I call, look at the homeless guy. They look at me and they're like, oh my goodness, the guy must be homeless. Look at his hair and his beard, and can we get you some food or something? And it's sad because when they watch about the Messiah, when they watch the old movies, nobody raises their hand and says, gee, they don't have a problem with Yeshua the Nazarite. They don't have a problem with Samson. They don't have a problem with people from the Nazarite or the Nazarite vow. They're not trained. So sadly, when you go to some of these churches, people have the nerve to say, do you know? Are you saved? And they're not trained up in the way that they should be, so they don't know what they're even looking at. And that's a sad time. And to other people who haven't been grounded, who haven't been trained up, sometimes what comes out of your mouth isn't pleasant. And think of this, and it all goes back to what would you have said to you? What would you have said? What would, I hate to say it, but 20 years ago, 30 years ago, if you seen a person like this, wouldn't you be, what would you say? What would I say? Look at that guy. Don't he need a haircut? What's he up with the beard? Who's he trying to be? But yet people, because we're not trained, we even look at each other and look down on each other or say things or, all these things instead of coming together, because it was really about coming together. Yeshua said he came to the lost. And I think that's another big point that we need to be trained in, that we need to understand. We all want to have an assembly. We all want to be together, which we should be. In the perfect world, in the way it's supposed to be, we are supposed to be together. But because we didn't train, because we didn't learn, because we don't live right, because of the many things that we did wrong, is why we are apart and scattered. Tower of Babel. So what does that say? And I've seen it, and it happens. Believers get together and they come up with different moons, different calendars, different ways, and some of them get too far. They throw out Paul, they throw out this, and then they throw out Yeshua, and then they throw out, and before you know it, they're just straight Jewish, they're Orthodox, and then that's not good enough either, and then usually the ending of those people, just like what is written, are worse. So you made these proselytes, you made these converts, but you made them worse than what they ever was before, because now they are non-believers in anything. You couldn't drag them inside of any type of church. So what's happening? We're not being trained, and for many, many, many cases, nobody has to learn. The Sabbath day is a rest day, of course. It is a day, but it's also a time to learn. It's a time for healing. It's a time for mental healing. It's a time for physical healing. It's a time of rest, but it also, as we see, is a time to be trained. And that training doesn't mean you sit there and you read your Bible verse. Because I've seen many people, and the wise ask questions. I know we don't want to look dumb. We don't want to be the one who asks the question, but Is there a wrong question? Is there a bad question? Is there, how long should this be? How should my seats? Okay, I'm going to start wearing seats. How should I wear them? Why can't we have a class on that? Why can't we have, I have a YouTube video of it. Why can't we have these things? If we're supposed to train up the children, and again, let's make that as whatever your age is. Because if you're brand new to this, and you just found out this is a Sabbath, you just found out this is Yahweh, it doesn't matter if you're 50. You're now a newborn babe in the Messiah, are you not? You're brand new to this. You are a baby to this. So how would you bring baby a muffin and a steak and say, eat up, baby? And he got teeth. He can't, there's no way it's not going to work. That's why you give them a bottle, you give them milk, you give them baby food, you give them mushy food until they get old enough that their body, their stomach could even handle these things. And some of them, even if you get too far going, they'll start throwing it up. What do? The same thing with believers. If we're not careful, they start regurgitating, they start throwing it up, and in some cases they start throwing up garbage. And because they have a congregation, you know, a lot of times I praise Yahweh that we didn't have 50 people or 150 people or 1,000 people, because then what would you do? As you're growing, oh, by the way, we did this wrong, we did that wrong, we did that wrong, and a lot of people will not accept wrong. You got to be perfect, right? If you're a pastor, if you're a teacher, you better come perfect, or you're just wrong. I mean, it's bad enough when you try your best to be perfect, because he says, I am perfect, therefore you shall be perfect. And still in doing that, there's still people like, what's that behind you? What's this over here? What? If they can't find nothing, they're going to find something. But those are not the ones we're really worried about. What I'm talking about is the babes, the ones who are wanting to learn, the ones who are trying to learn. And if you raised your child and you gave them truth, and even if they was 15, even into your child that is unbelieving, he was a believer, you brought him up, you taught him, what's wrong with him? I don't know, we don't know. You know, we can't answer why things are why the things they are. They just are. The more that I live, the more that, you know, I've wanted to change the world. I've tried to change the world, and in some aspects I have. I've been in other countries, and I hope touching them, being with them, and by touching them I mean physically being around them, touching their spiritual, not laying hands on people and all that, but just them seeing the shalom and the happiness and the things, you know, because I've always tried to be happy where I was. I've always tried to make the best of it. Whether it was Desert Storm or Afghanistan, sure, you don't like it. You don't want to be there. It's not, you know, it ain't like you wouldn't take a plane ticket home at any point in time. But wherever you are, you're probably going through it for a reason. And if it's not because of chastisement, it's not because of evil, and you pray that out and you hammer that out and you say, Father, help me. And once you get over all that, then you just have to understand that being around people, you know, and a lot of people I know they're prepping, they're getting ready, they're going hiding in the world, in the woods, you know, in the world, but it isn't a help. There's Bible verses that said, who has led you to these mountains? Until it's time to go, it's not time to go. Because making a community in Arkansas, it sounds great. It sounds beautiful. Making a community in Tennessee, beautiful, wonderful. But you know 9 times out of 10, 30 people that come there, 29 of them disagree. And they're going to disagree, and they're going to get their land. They're going to do these things, and everything in 5 years will be a big disappointment. And even if it works, even if you have the community, even if everything is so beautiful and you have 50 people there, you're still secluded. We learn in Yeshua. Yeshua did not go and build a second synagogue, right? He didn't come and build a temple in Nazareth. He didn't build one in Bethlehem. So if he didn't build these temples and these places and synagogues, then why are we? We all are trying to push what is going to be. But it's not going to be until it's going to be, if that makes sense, right? The millennial reign is not until the millennial reign. It's just not going to be. And can we have that on earth? No, probably not, because we're not supposed to. Because even if we did, we wouldn't be training people. What a lot of people miss with these communities, and I've tried, but what they are missing is, who do you talk to? Who do you train? And if nobody there wants to be trained, then it's a pointless thing. A lot of people want to sit around and do nothing and live off the land and plant crops and all that, which I believe that's what we're supposed to do. That's how we're supposed to live, right? We're not supposed to depend on Walmart, big government, other things. We shouldn't be depending on them. But that's a whole different sermon on a whole different day for a whole different time. But what we have is what we have. All that to say that even if we had that perfect little utopia, right? What about your neighbors? What about the people in the next town? What about the people? Because Yeshua didn't do that. The Messiah, the Hamashiach, went to the lost. He went to different people. And I think that's what a lot of us are missing. That even on here, we can touch Pakistan, Uzbekistan, Turkish. I mean, people on here and they're watch at different times and, Yahweh bless you. Kenya. And I love Pakistan and the people that they're hungry. But how could I do that if I was in an Amish village in Centray, Illinois, on the outskirts? Nobody would ever hear this. So we all have a purpose. We all have, and we have to direct that purpose. The best thing I've found is what Yahweh has ordained. Take that path and stay on it until He tells you to go in a different direction. And that's not always our children. That's not always our daughter. That's not always our mom and dad. Because we want them to be saved. We want them to be happy. We want them to be healed. But sometimes what I found in helping others, how much glory does the Father get out of that? And how much do we get out by seeing somebody healed? I met people I've never heard of in my life. Never seen them. Some people I've never even seen them in person, but they've been healed because of Yahweh. That's amazing. It's amazing that someone you've never met is still walking, talking, and breathing and being happy upon this earth because of your obedience. So training ourselves. Proverbs 29:15. The rod and reproof give wisdom, but a child left to himself brings shame to his mother. I know a lot of us don't want to hear this. I know me 5 years ago didn't look at this as the same perspective as me today. The rod and reproof give wisdom. We're thinking of some disobedient child. We're thinking of somebody that's just so disobedient. But sometimes to be put back in order, the rod and the reproof has to be a sickness. It has to be somebody you know. It has to be you. Because even though you might think you have this figured out, and you might think that you are the YouTube star of the world, or you're getting ready to be, if you're not walking perfect, if you don't have love, we can have knowledge, we can have wisdom, we can have, next to Solomon wisdom. Next to, you're not going to have it, but you can get some wisdom. But even if you have all that, even if you're wielding the biggest sword on this earth, even if you can see people healed and they're grabbing your seats and all these things are happening, if we're not careful, that haughtiness, that untrainable spirit, that untrainable person has to be chastised, because you'll walk by 10 people to get to somebody that you think is going to uplift you. You'll go to one church and only one church because I ain't going to them. They ain't Sabbath keepers. Well, they're all lost. Well, that's the whole point. Right? I mean, that's the whole point. They're lost. That's where the Messiah went, to the lost. If we as believers don't have that love for the lost, who can we train? Who are we going to train? There's people that are begging to be healed. There's people that are begging to know more. There's people that are praying to know more. Where are they? Some of the best places, Yahweh forgive us, are in these churches. They're in there looking for faith, looking for love, looking to be trained, and they're not going to get it. So sometimes some of the things that we despise, hate, don't want to be a part of, we have to say, Yahweh forgive us, because I think a lot of believers, Sabbath keepers, I ain't never going to no Sunday church. I ain't have nothing to do with no Sunday. Yahweh forgive me. I've said it. There ain't nothing in Sunday church for me. They're all just this and all that. They're all lost. A lot of them are lost. Not all, but I'm saying a lot of those people, especially the new ones, are searching. They're looking. They're praying. They want to be trained. Who's going to train them? Somebody that needs to be trained? Most of these pastors, I'm just leave it at that. I'm trying to get out of the whole beat people up, but most of these pastors, honestly, they know what they're doing. There's a few that don't. There's a few that are trying to do the right thing, but most of them know what they're doing. And you can tell it when they don't speak to you, they don't want nothing to do with you. You start talking about Bible after the service, and they're talking about golf and football and sitting in there drinking a beer, and what are you doing here? You know what I'm saying? Why? Well, you call yourself a pastor, and you're sitting back in the easy chair watching the football game, but nonetheless, those people, one, might be lost out of the whole church, no matter if there's 50 or 150 or 1,000 or maybe we're sent there for that lost one. Maybe, and again, we don't have to take the Bible and smack them in the head with it and say, do you see what it says right here and how wrong you are? Maybe just by looking and saying, that lady's different. The head covering, the mitri, the tzitzis, what is up with these people? And today, praise Yahweh. They can Google a lot of this stuff. We was somewhere the other day. Actually, we was at the hospital the other day, hematology. And some lady took a picture of us. And if you know me, unless I'm working or doing something or, I usually have this on. I have seats and all that. So some lady took a picture. I hope she was taking a picture, not because I look so funny, and see if I was on the homeless list, but I hope she was looking to see his name and look up and to find out what we was about. Because some people just won't ask. I'd rather people, and I've told them, just ask. How can you be trained? And a lot of people say, well, outward it does mean a lot. Your outward person is what people see. Your outward who you are is what people see. They're never going to know, I believe. How are they going to know what you believe? A lot of pastors and people, they go and they drop their suit and tie, and you see them in Walmart, you can't tell they're a pastor. You can't tell they're from anybody else. And some of them look worse than some other people. But when we put on what Yahweh told us to wear, I'm all for seats. I'm all for the mitri. I'm all for representing my king. Because if we're afraid of that, and I used to feel, I knew. I first started wearing the seats and all that, but I was trained. I read it. I knew I had to do it. And I knew by doing it. Count the cost. Don't just throw them on because they're different. Don't count. Just, I think a lot of women wear them because, ooh, look, people are going to look at me. That's not the reason to do these things. This is not an intention, look at me. This is about the Creator. And the Creator said to do these things. And hopefully within doing them, and your obedience is better than sacrifice, people will be healed. People will look it up. People, I pray that we go places and people look this up after they go, oh my gosh, what are these people up to? Where do they come from? What tribe are you from, brother? I've had people, and I know a lot of us out there, what tribe are you from? Are you Jewish? Are you this? Are you that? A lot of us don't really know. Are you really from Judah? Are you really a Levite? Do we know? Can we prove it? If you can't prove it, and by that I don't mean that you got a vision and you got bumped on your head and fell out your car and you now think you're the Levite of the world, or you thought you was Enoch or Elijah. I'm talking about if you ain't got like a coat of arms and a handwritten from the tribe of this, and even at that, if you're not living it, you're not doing it, you're not training people, what's the point? You could be straight from the tribe of Yehuda, but if you're not training, and by training, I mean training what the scripture says, right? Proverbs 22:15, folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline drives it far from him. There's just something about sickness, hard times, that draws you closer to the Creator. It just draws you closer. You open your eyes. There's things that I'm more open to now than probably ever was. There's groups now that I'll go sit in and listen to that one time I just couldn't be a part of almost. It was just like, what am I doing here? But by us being in anything, don't you think it's pleasing to the Father? By us trying. If you're trying, have you ever been mad at your child for trying? If your child come in and was trying to, do anything and they dropped the bottle and it shattered and went everywhere, it may not be your happiest day, but if they was trying, you're not probably going to holler and scream and scold and get them in trouble. You're just going to say, hey, they was trying. They was trying to do something. So I believe the Father, as long as we're trying, but we leave out the arrogance, the haughtiness, the I'm right, you're wrongness, because a lot of things we can learn. And I believe our biggest downfall, honestly, other than training the right way, we don't want to listen to each other. I've had people I've known for years that just don't even want to study. They don't even want to talk about. You talk about certain things, they have nothing to do with it. I don't want to talk about that. I've given people books. I print out things and research. I try to really research things out because I want to be right. And, it's just like, I've been to congregations and they know they're wrong, but they're not going to change it. And big congregations, you would know probably exactly what I was talking about. But I'm trying not to beat people up anymore. I'm just trying to say that right is right, wrong is wrong. Don't lose your soul over a congregation. Don't lose your don't be judged. I mean, I'm even to the point that, a lot of people say, well, is it a salvation issue? Well, if Yahweh says sin is sin, and it doesn't really matter other than blasphemy, that pretty much all sin is sin. There's a sin unto death. We know, not murder, but as long as we don't go out there too far sinning, but we're still going to have to answer for them. So would it be worth it to be least in the kingdom? We don't think eternally. If we thought eternally, we would probably never live the way we live. If we thought eternal kingdom life, we would probably live totally different. These things, these trinkets, these cameras, these things would be a whole different, oh wow, look at what I got. Look what I got. And sadly, I don't think we realize this until we get older because we've been brainwashed into this is what we're chasing. You're on the running treadmill, and if you ever get this carrot, you ever get the big TV, you ever get the big house, you ever get this, then you just have more headaches. And you don't realize it until you obtain the more headaches, the more problems. And then you realize that was all a hoax. That was all, what was I chasing that for anyway? And sadly for a lot of people, they've spent a lot of their life chasing the wrong things. Again, they wasn't trained right. Train a child when they're young, serve Yahweh, talk to Yahweh, pray, be all about Yahweh, and you won't have these things the older you get of, why did I even do that for? What was that bicycle, that car? Always wanted a Ferrari, always wanted this. And then I went to Germany and I found a Ferrari. It's right there. All you need is this to do it. It took everything out of it almost. It took all the dream. There it is. So a lot of times, a lot of the dream, the chasing, is the fun, the thing that we do. And then when it's in our hand, it's like, well, what's it? That wasn't the excitement I thought it would be. But that's what the enemy's selling. The enemy's Hollywood, stardom, all these things that children, it's horrible, that these children and parents dyeing their hair green and blue and looks like, you go to town, it looks like a clown circus. It's like, where's Bozo? It's just, why? What trends? But when someone says, hey, let's serve Yahweh, let's be eternal, let's do the right thing and we'll all be happy. No, let's rip up our jeans and let's live unmodest, let's live crazy, and then wonder why the sickness, the food, the things, there's so much to be trained on. There's there's a lifetime of knowing. And please don't stop with the Sabbath. Please don't stop with the feast. Please don't stop and think that you're there, because a lot of us think we have. A lot of times once hey, I got the Sabbath, got the name, what else do I need? There's nothing else to learn. Where else could I go? And just that attitude proves you didn't have the training, because the next week, the next year, the next Sukkot, you're like, man, I feel like untrained person, for better words, right? Wow. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of Elohim, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to Elohim, which is your spiritual service, your reasonable, acceptable service. Romans 12:1. And again, your body is that sacrifice. Your life is a sacrifice. Make no mistake about it. Saying a one-day prayer and thinking it's all said and done, that is not what the scriptures teaches. That's not what Yeshua or any disciple, what the Bible teaches. It teaches us that if we present this body as a living sacrifice, well, what does that mean? It means when you get up, you pray, and you talk with Yahweh. And when you're going by the way, if you run into someone and they have any questions, anything you can help, anything you can do, but I'm busy and I got, exactly, that's your sacrifice. That's your sacrifice, your daily sacrifice. Whoa, ever heard of that? The daily morning sacrifice, the evening sacrifice. Your sacrifice is doing what Yahweh wants you to do. And therefore you get the ending rewards. You get your crowns. You get the eternal things that here, what's it worth? We get these things, and they're beautiful little things, and they help us out so much, but a lot of them are made of plastic and cords, and how long will they last? A few years. If you got something for 10 years, you probably think it's pretty handy, right? These phones don't last that long. Most of the cameras, most of the equipment, most of the most sophisticated things that you buy, and in 6 months to a year and a half, it's not even working properly no more. It's almost garbage, right? And you get a brand new computer, brand new this, and Before you know it, it starts slowing down. It starts having problems. So all that to say is, if we do what the Creator says, it helps us, it helps those around us, and it helps our eternal way. We'll do Psalms 127, 3 through 5. Behold, children are a heritage from Yahweh, the fruit of the womb, a reward like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. He shall not be put to shame when he speaks with his enemies in the gate. So it's not always they have to be perfect. It's you done your job. You train them up. And what a blessing we see these people who have children now, that they're training them. Help them. You may not be able to help your son, daughter. Maybe they're too old. Maybe they don't want to listen. Help the younger generation. Help those. This is what you can do. This is what I wish I would have done. That's where you can pour that into someone else's life and help them, hopefully, do a better job. Right? Ain't that what we really come down to? If we're really believing, then we should be helping one another. I'll do two more before we close up. Deuteronomy 6 and 7. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. I find it amazing that people turn on CNN and Fox News and all these different things in the morning, and when they come home from work, and when they do this, and when they do that. Well, what do you think your children, even if they're children, even if they're small, my children don't know no better, they can hear. There's something being put into them. There's a seed that's tying into them. And when you sit there and have problems and fights and talk and scream at the TV, what's the point of it? If you got to scream at your TV every time it comes on, or you think then why just leave it off? Just don't turn it on. Don't feed your household with garbage. Because if you feed your household with what they're pumping out on that thing most of the time, your children are being trained. And when you give someone 2 or 3 roads, they have 2 or 3 roads, right? You give a small mind 3 different ways, they have 3 different ways, like it or not. You can drink the apple juice, you can drink the water, you can have the liquor. Well, gee, you gave them the choice. Let's cut out the choices. Let's give them Yahweh. Let's give them verses. Let's talk about the scripture. Let's give them the true truth, the unadulterated truth of Yahweh. And then we can say, I did all I can do. And just like it says, once you've done all you do, you just stand on it and hope that they come back. 2 Timothy 3 and 16, 17. All scripture is breathed out by Yahweh and profitable for teaching, for reproof, for correction, and for training in righteousness, that the man of Elohim may be competent, equipped for every good work. That we are supposed to be ready, in season, out of season. If somebody walks up to on the street, that's when you know you're trained. That's when you know the Ruach and you hear the Creator. When someone asks you, when someone wants to talk to you. And again, it's not always here, let me open the Bible verse and give you the correct Bible verse. It's loving kindness. How can I help you? Helping someone change a tire, supporting them, talking to them while they're doing it. Any of those things goes a long way. There was somebody there last night that they said they're going to remember for the rest of their life, and they're going to train their children of what they've just learned. A young lady. Isn't that amazing that you can instill somebody that's 17, 16 years old into, they want to train their children in what they've just seen. They want to show that love. That's amazing to me, that if we could do that with 1 or 1,000, I mean, is there a limit? Should we limit ourselves? Should we pat ourselves on the back and say, well, I met that one, and it's never over. This life is not over until he says it's over, and until we're still going, we are that living sacrifice. We are the light into this dark world, and they need light. They need love. They need to know the difference between right and wrong. A lot of these people do anything. Paint your hair, rip your clothes, have an abortion. It don't matter to them because they don't know, they're not trained. They don't realize they're going to be judged for every idle word that comes out of their mouth. They think that most of them, sadly, their God is the TV. And whatever their TV God says, you want McDonald's, bump, 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 and they're running to McDonald's. You want, Yaco Bell, whatever it is, whatever garbage they're putting in that people know what's in it. Look at those signs. Look what's on those signs. Look at the eye that's in that sign. There's a lot of things that we can train and know that we're not being trained correctly. So, Teshuva, that's all Teshuva. And Paul said, I die daily. There's so much that we can learn from each other. There's so much we can do. There's so much we can learn. And by all means, if you have any more knowledge, anything to expand on this, then let me know. We love to talk. We love to fellowship. And we soon hope to be starting another In His Healing Herbs, and hopefully doing another channel and doing another thing on helping in all aspects that Yahweh has put upon us, that we can do what we can do and what He sent us to do. So thank you very much for listening, for watching. If you have any requests, if you have any prayers, if you need anything, let us know. And we are still praying for healing. We're still praying for His will to be done. And we really hope to be up and going again strong very soon, and going to help those who need it. And if you're one, by all means, let us know. So until next time, Yahweh bless you. May Yahweh's countenance shine upon you, and may He grant you shalom. Shalom, everybody. Thank you very much again. Repent and call upon the name of Yahweh, and let's help train each other. And Professor Smith, all that knowledge, let's glean from our knowledge. That's great. It's amazing that the things that each of us have, when we come together, and I believe that's another thing why the enemy wants us fighting and chaos and hating on each other and hating, oh, he's got more likes than me and this one's got more, because when we come together, yes, Shabbat Shalom, Chris, when we come together, it's such an amazing thing. How many, just like the scripture says, when 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, He'll be there. So it's amazing the power that we can wield, that we can have through Yahweh when we come together. So thank you very much. Thank you for watching. Till next time, may Yahweh bless you. Have a great and wonderful Sabbath weekend.